From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Nwawodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, President inaugurates the Presidential Economic Coordination Council. Members are saddled with the responsibility of strategizing ways out of the current economic situation in Nigeria. The Senate launches an investigation into transactions for the Mambila hydroelectric power project from 1999 to date. And Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja vacates order sacking 25 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly who defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. Federal High Court Abuja voids the People's Democratic Party governorship primary election that produced Adeboye as the party's candidate in the forthcoming governorship election in Edo State.
On business news tonight, NNPC commissions 12 CNG. The federal government announces new rates regime for Nigeria's mining sector to enhance ease of doing business and consolidate ongoing reforms.
On sports news tonight, the Super Eagles of Nigeria drawn in a tricky Group D with Benin Republic, Libya and Rwanda in the 2025 African Cup of Nations qualifiers.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekiao, asks the National Assembly to make laws that grant recognition to traditional institutions.
And in international news from London, hundreds of thousands of homes in Jamaica are without power after Hurricane Beryl thundered along the island's south coast.
Ways out of the current economic situation in Nigeria. At the ceremony, which took place in the State House, Abuja, the president unveiled his stabilization and advancement emergency plan to cover the next 6 months. The plan includes the injection of 2 trillion naira into the Nigerian economy. The Senate has launched an investigation into transactions of the Mambila hydroelectric power project from the year 1999 to date. The resolution was adopted after a motion moved said by Senator Haruna Manu, representing Taraba Central Senatorial District, on the urgent need to address the challenges of commencing the Mambila hydroelectric power project. The lawmakers highlighted the failure of the previous government to prioritize the national project, which has the capacity to generate over 3,000 megawatts of electricity and reposition the Ajaokuta Steel Complex with $1.7 billion. Our National Assembly correspondent Gloria Umezuke reports.
On the last legislative day of the week, lawmakers converged for the business of the day, resolving, among other things, to launch full investigation into the failure of previous administrations to float the Mambila power project in a motion moved by Senator Haruna Manu.
With its capacity to generate 3,050 megawatts and reposition the Ajaokuta Steel Complex with $1.7 billion makes it a priority project of national importance. Worried that the volume of contradictory information about the project might hinder the actualization of the good objectives and the benefits it brings to the good people of Nigeria.
Not even an inch of the road that will take you to the Mambila has been constructed. So this project, if it must ever be executed, it has to have the special blessing and commitment of Mr. President himself.
It's one subject the lawmakers are not only enthused about, but share common disenchantment.
It is Nigerian lawyers and government officials in the Ministry of Justice over the years. They always enter into an agreement that disfavors the country to the benefit of private investors who pay a peanut for admission to be worded in a way that Nigeria is in trouble.
100 megawatts are more than enough to virtually each and every state in Nigeria. And in one place, you can mobilize and generate 3,000 megawatts, and yet over the years, we've been playing politics with this. Mr. President, something is wrong with us.
The upper chamber equally resolved that in reviving the project, the original plan of 3,000 megawatts capacity be maintained. Separately, the report of a bill seeking to establish the North Central Development Commission is presented for consideration and passage. The bill, which was read for the second time in February 2024, was first sponsored by Senator Abba Moro in the 9th Senate, but failed to get presidential assent.
North Central Development Commission as a catalyst to develop the areas or potentials of the North Central, as well as address the gap in infrastructural development of the region, and for related matters 2024 third reading taken and passed.
Lawmakers also passed for second reading a bill sponsored by Senator Adeola Olamilekun seeking to amend the National Railway Corporation Act to include insurance fee to offer compensation to passengers in case of accidents, injuries or death. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Let's head to the courts now, where the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has set aside the order made by the High Court of Rivers State restraining the 25 members of the Rivers House of Assembly who allegedly defected from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress from further parading themselves as members of the Assembly and conducting legislative assignments. In a unanimous judgment, a three-member panel of the Appellate Court, led by Justice Jimmy Bada, held that the Rivers State High Court lacked the jurisdiction to hear the case, which bordered on whether or not the seats of the lawmakers who allegedly defected were vacant or their terms were seized. It held that by the provision of Section 2733 of the Constitution, it is only the Federal High Court that has the jurisdiction to determine whether or not the seat of the lawmakers is vacant or his term in office has ceased. Justice Bada held that by granting the order restraining the lawmakers from further acting as members of the Assembly without hearing of the appellants amounted to a denial of their rights to fair hearing. Justice Bada held that no urgency warranted the grant of the ex parte order by the Rivers State High Court, and he said the trial court ought to have listened to both sides before coming to a decision to the appellants. A Rivers State lawmaker, Mr. Martin Amehule, has applauded the Court of Appeal's judgment, which nullified his expulsion and 24 others from the Rivers State House of Assembly. While reacting to that judgment, he promised to uphold the Constitution and continue the goodwill of Rivers people towards developing the state.
Quite understandably, the ruling is music to ears of the victors. The APC caretaker chairman, Tony Okocha, and his team are in a celebratory mood as they describe the ruling as the dawn of a new River State.
Suggests that the Assembly, led by Martin Amehule and his colleagues, are still potent. They are members of the Assembly, and it is within their rights as legislators to make the laws, good laws indeed, for the people of River State.
A Port Harcourt-based legal practitioner believes that the appeal court ruling not only affirms the speakership of Martin Amehule, but nullifies everything done by Victor Okujombo.
The implication of which is straight and clear. All the actions that, allow me to introduce this, were purportedly taken by Victor Okujombo. They go to naught.
Associate Professor of Law at the Rivers State University, however, argues that the ruling doesn't actually affirm Amehule's position and that it merely quashes the jurisdiction of the High Court in hearing the matter.
If the court, as it did, said that that is a question that can only be declared or determined by the Federal High Court, and so that Justice Wale lacked jurisdiction to entertain that matter and make the orders he made, that the court could not also have said the one you are talking about. So if you had anything like that, that was said obita, that was said by the way.
Mr. Wokocha further explains that the main issue of the defection of the lawmakers is still the subject of litigation and is still unresolved.
Where we are is where we were before Justice Wale made his pronouncement. And what was that? That those seats had been declared vacant. And anybody who thinks that they were not properly declared vacant is to approach a court, the Federal High Court.
On the matter of the tenure elongation of the council chairman, Mr. Wori is of the view that the ruling may not directly affect them.
The law made by Honorable the River State House Assembly, led by Honorable Martin Chiki Ameuli, that those laws are valid. I had argued that it doesn't amount to tenure elongation.
While the Court of Appeal may have ruled in the case involving Ameuli and Okojumbo, the intrigues are far from over, even as both sides gear up for their next line of action. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Still in the courts, Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has held the governorship primary election held by the People's Democratic Party in the Edo State February 22 election, which proposed and produced Asue Godalo as the party's candidate is invalid. In a judgment, Justice Ekwo held that the decision of the PDP to exclude 378 elected ward delegates from participating in the primary election was a violation of the provision of Article 53 of the Constitution of the party. The judgment was on the suit filed on February the 8th by Honorable Kelvin Mohammed, Gabriel Osi Okodua, and Edehero Osage for themselves and on behalf of the 378 ad hoc delegates whose names and election results appear on exhibits bid 8A to 8. The judge said that there is no doubt that the second defendant, that's the PDP, neither complied with the relevant provision of its constitution nor the electoral guidelines for primary elections on the 22nd of February 2024. He added that it is the law that political parties must obey their constitution, guidelines, and regulations. He continues that the failure to comply with electoral guidelines is not different from the effect of the non-compliance with the constitution of the political party or non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. The decision for the second defendants not to include the plaintiffs in the governorship primaries for which they were elected at the Ward Congress was arbitrarily done. Ward Congresses are to be held in accordance with the law, the party's constitution, and electoral guidelines. The judge added that consequently, he finds the case of the plaintiffs succeeds on the merits upon the preponderance of the evidence as required by law. In the meantime, Edo State PDP campaign organization says the ruling of the Federal High Court Abuja did not invalidate the outcome of the party's primary election, which produced Asue Godalo and his running mate, Osaro Dion Oge, as the party's flag bearers. The party describes the judgment as a stand and strange development and contrary to the long line of appellate court's decision on that subject. It describes the suit as one filed by some disgruntled persons who claim that they were authentic delegates wrongly excluded from participating in the choice of the People's Democratic Party flag bearer in the forthcoming gubernatorial election in Edo State. The view was echoed by the Deputy Director General of Asue Oge Campaign Management Council, Mr. Don Pedro Obasekio, who was a guest on our program, Politics Today. In part two, after the break, the federal government warns that river flooding will begin by the end of July. 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory are likely to be impacted by the flood. Please join us again.
Yes, you can. And you can do it now with Taj Bank. Open an account with as little as 500 Naira and earn profits with the Mudaraba Savings Account with Taj Bank. Enjoy zero account maintenance, withdraw as many times as possible, and still get profit. Offer is open to both new and existing customers. Open an account by downloading the Tajway app on Play Store, the Apple Store, or walk into any Taj Bank branch closest to you. Taj Bank, our only interest is you.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
Back if you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. The President inaugurates the Presidential Economic Coordination Council members. They're saddled with the responsibility of strategizing on the current economic situation in Nigeria. The Senate has launched an investigation into transactions for the Mambila hydroelectric power project from 1999 to date. Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja vacates order sacking 25 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly who defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. The Federal High Court Abuja avoids the People's Democratic Party governorship primary election that produced Asue Godalo as the party's candidate to the forthcoming governorship election. Head back to our main story where we told you that President Bola Tinubu has inaugurated the Presidential Economic Coordination Council, tasked with the responsibility of strategizing ways out of the current economic situation in Nigeria. At the ceremony, which took place in the State House Abuja, the President unveiled his stabilization and advancement emergency plan to cover the next 6 months. The plan includes the injection of 2 trillion naira into the Nigerian economy. Our State House correspondent Larry Lasisi reports.
The council chamber slowly fills up as the president of the Senate, some cabinet ministers, the chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, top private sector players and economists make their way in. As members of the Presidential Economic Coordination Council, they're here for the inauguration ceremony. Once President Bola Tinubu arrives, he outlines the task before the council.
I can give instructions as the president from my office, but I believe so much deeply in the organized private sector, the partnership to drive the economy of this country, for reforms and stabilization that is necessary.
Following the meeting, members of the council outline other decisions taken at the meeting, such as the stabilization and advancement emergency plan.
The sum of that very important exercise is that a 2 trillion naira package involving 350 billion naira funding for health and social welfare, 500 billion naira funding for agriculture and food security, 500 billion for the energy and power sector, and general business support of about 650 billion.
He said in addition to some policy and tax measures, the president has signed some executive orders which are to ease the cost of doing business in the country.
The commitment to providing food at an affordable price and in available quantities is uppermost in Mr. President's mind at this particular time.
Representatives of the private sector salute the initiative.
Our own issues are not that bad. This economy can be turned around within few months, and I think we're on that way. I must really thank His Excellency, Mr. President, for inaugurating this council, and we'll start meeting immediately, and I can assure you, you'll see a lot of changes coming. I know that everybody is in a hurry, but we have what it takes to turn around this economy. Things are not going to be bad. We are now just we've gone to the bottom, but we're going to rise up and make sure that we make every single Nigerian proud to be a Nigerian.
So we hope that with the private sector working with the federal government under President Tinubu, that things will begin to improve.
The council is expected to be meeting and report to the president monthly. It's expected that this partnership will help the economy positively and ensure a better outcome for Nigerians. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
We turn our attention now to the environment, where the Minister of Water Resources, Professor Joseph Ostev, is asking states and the general public to follow recommended measures to prevent the ugly impact of the floods of the past years. Professor Ostev stated this during a press conference at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja, where he also revealed that the federal government is planning proactive steps to address flooding in the country.
The flash floods are popping up across the country following the incessant rainfall. Submerged vehicles and houses are evidence of these flood situations. And this has been a problem for many years. It appears the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, in partnership with the Hydrological Service Agency, is seeking out avenues to mitigate the situation, given the 2024 outlook.
The AFO shows that 148 local government areas in 31 states fall within the high flood risk, while 249 local government areas fall within the moderate flood risk areas. So far, more than 10 states of the Federation and the FCT has experienced 1 degree of flooding or the other, with several casualties.
The minister is concerned about the floods in some states in the midst of the cholera outbreak.
Look into the issue of cholera in Nigeria, which we believe that flooding, because we know very well that cholera is a waterborne disease, and as a result of that, flooding is also a cause of the cholera in Nigeria. It is important to state that river flooding is expected beginning from this month, July 2024.
Dams in Nigeria have served as a barrier to hold back water. The minister has some revelations about these infrastructure and early warning letters to state governors. Meanwhile, he says the federal government is working out measures to mitigate flooding across the country, including clearing of blocked drainage systems and canals, relocation of people living along the waterways, consideration of channelization of major rivers in the country, and the construction of dikes, flood walls, buffer dams, detention, and water retaining structures.
Both Kanji and Jeba dams of River Niger are still impounding water into their reservoirs. Shiroro Dam on River Kaduna is equally impounding water. There is no release of water yet from any of the dams within and outside Nigeria.
The federal government believes these recommendations and knowledge will enable Nigerians take steps to mitigate the impact of floods.
Movement and other forms of activities have bounced back across Lagos, and that's after they were halted by massive floods from a downpour that lasted for over 14 hours on Wednesday. Just as the flood was receding, officials of the National and Lagos State Emergency Management Agencies were out to assess the impact of the overflow in some affected areas.
Like older motorists who have returned to the roads in Lagos to pursue their endeavors after they were held back by floods, officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and their counterpart from the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, head out to assess the impact of Wednesday's heavy downpour. The first stop for the team is the lowland area of Ogudi community, where a massive overflow was reported. Strikingly, the streets are dry. In assessing the impact of the rain, the inspection team engages residents in conversation, which revealed that the flood lasted for about 4 hours.
Most of the reports we have now is that they had heavy flooding yesterday, but now the water had gone down.
It is good for us to also encourage the community
they have a lot of role to play in the process of mitigating the impact of flood.
Although no damages are reported here, residents are, however, concerned about the size of the drainage system.
Nothing like damages in our area yesterday at all. Nothing like. The only thing we just know we need is maybe drainage. With the community, we are trying fixing some, as you can see. But if the government can still do that for us, we appreciate it more.
Across the other side of the road leading to the third mainland bridge is Yanoworo. Going by the level of the flood that reportedly covered the main road, one wouldn't have expected less of a submerged community. But the situation here is otherwise. The water has abated.
You cannot just wait and be seeing the water to destroy your property. You have to do one or two things to save your property. So I think they did that yesterday. And they know that it just come and it will go like that.
Again, a blocked canal that cuts through the community shows that the area is still prone to flood.
And they promised us, the director promised us that they will come and start the job.
Job on what?
To do the canal. And he said that they are ready award, the Lagos State government award this contract.
From what you can see, you can see grass and everything on it. So it was a major cause of the flooding of yesterday. So if the government can expand it and clear the canal, water will have easy access.
Like Yanoworo, Bariga, Ogudu, reports from other parts of Lagos where impact assessments is being done also indicate that the flood has disappeared. The recent rains poses a strong warning that residents should be prepared for more rainfall as predicted by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency.
The federal government has inaugurated a steering committee for the Clean Nigeria campaign, and this is part of measures to combat the recent outbreak of cholera in the country. At the inauguration of the committee in the presidential villa Abuja, Vice President Kashim Shettima reiterated the commitment of the administration of President Bola Tinubu to protect the environment. Our State House correspondent Emperor Simon reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima is here to inaugurate the committee to spearhead the Clean Nigeria campaign under President Bola Tinubu's government. The campaign was launched in 2019, and the current government wants to review its progress in the last 5 years through the committee, a move that is necessitated by the spike in cases of cholera across the country.
Building and sustaining interest in the healthiness and cleanliness of our environments is a necessity we cannot afford to relegate, as the consequences of neglect are dire. This meeting provides us the opportunity to evaluate the progress made so far through interventions aimed at improving basic hygiene. The correlation between hygiene, health, and its impact on development and wealth cannot be overstated. The reported cases of cholera in the country serve as a sufficient motivation for us to be wary of health crisis.
The Vice President also calls for private sector participation and the need to leverage technology for sustainable solutions to boost the nation's sanitation landscape.
Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President.
Meanwhile, the need for state governments to ensure that warning signals about flooding are adhered to also comes to the fore as the Ministers of Water Resources, Health and Environment speak to journalists after the meeting.
Flooding has also effects on the cholera outbreak that we have in the country today. The subnationals, that is the state government and the local governments, should also key in and they should abide by the warnings given.
The president's approach is whole of government, and he's got a team, all of us working hand in hand, trying to advance the agenda that he has set forward. That is how Nigeria will get better.
For us as Minister of Environment, the aspect of improving sanitation, improving environmental stewardship, improving awareness, improving responsible management of our wastes is key to ensuring that we have good public health and a productive population.
Since the outbreak of cholera this year, over 30 deaths have been recorded and 2,000 people said to be affected in 33 states. The federal government is looking to change the narrative by nipping the challenge in the bud. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
The Eke Oyibo Amobia market building collapse in Anambra State has left 2 people dead and 4 others have been rescued. Confirming that incident during the search and rescue operation, the police public relations officer in the state, Tochukwu Ikenga, says the 4 persons rescued are currently receiving treatment at a nearby hospital. Commiserating with the victim's family, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Chukwuma Okoye, in whose constituency the unfortunate incident took place, said that he promised not to relent until the cause of the disaster is known. Meanwhile, rescue operation is still ongoing to ensure there are no trapped individuals under the rubble. Still ahead on the news at 10, the Federal Ministry of Education.
Yes, you can. And you can do it now with Taj Bank. Open an account with as little as 500 Naira and earn profits with the Mudaraba Savings Account with Taj Bank. Enjoy zero account maintenance, withdraw as many times as possible, and still get profit. Offer is open to both new and existing customers. Open an account by downloading the Tajway app on Play Store, the Apple Store, or walk into any Taj Bank branch closest to you. Taj Bank, our only interest is you.
Welcome back. We head over to Abuja studios now, where Malpe Ogun-Yusuf is standing by to give us more. Hello, Malpe.
Hello, Anne. It's good to see you. Well, we're starting off at the National Assembly, where the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekiao, is asking the National Assembly to make laws that grant recognition to traditional institutions. According to him, the traditional institutions over the years have shown commitment to national security and development. Mr. Mekiao stated this during a panel discussion of the House of Representatives with traditional rulers. Our National Assembly correspondent, Terry Ikumi, reports.
It's the second day of the legislative open week of the House of Representatives. The Speaker of the House moderates an interactive session with traditional rulers and socio-cultural groups on the role of the traditional institution in national development and security.
Today is the day we set aside to discuss mutually, frankly to each other, what we need to do to ensure that our traditional institutions have a say in the affairs of this country.
Traditional leaders highlight how they can complement government efforts.
Before the colonialism of the colonization of Nigeria by the British, we had this institution operating very well, knowing our cultures, protecting our values, and promoting our interests. We need security votes in our domain. It's quite very important, because with that we'll be able to control and then work seriously on the way forward in order to tackle the security of our domain.
Traditional institution is the only institution that is everywhere. I feel that is the institution you can use to solve most of the challenges, especially in the area of security, as it concerns security in Nigeria.
There should be constitutional provision to protect a traditional ruler once he has been installed. In the various states, traditional rulers should be made member of the State Security Council.
The president of the Nigerian Bar Association lends his voice to calls for recognition of traditional institutions.
Some of these laws upon which these institutions are predicated today are archaic. They do not allow the traditional institutions to perform in the way that they can bring this value that all of us agree they have to bring to bear in dealing with our national issues. And so I would want to recommend there is nothing wrong in creating a constitutional role for the traditional institutions.
This interaction is in preparation of the Constitution Amendment of the 10th Assembly, as Parliament considers options that could improve the security situation in the country and bring development closer to the grassroots. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Talking trade, as a result of the incessant illegal importation of arms and ammunition into the country, the Nigeria Customs Service has announced plans to reactivate its bilateral relationship with Turkey to arrest the situation. At a news conference organized by the Strategic Communication Interagency Policy Committee, the National Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Customs Service, Mr. Abdullahi Maiwada, says the service is also working towards establishing a custom-to-custom cooperation as part of efforts to check the illegal importation of arms from Turkey.
It's the second Strategic Communications Interagency Policy Committee meeting as spokespersons of various security agencies converge on the force headquarters for a news conference.
It's also pertinent to call on the media, our friends.
The force public relations officer kickstarts the conference as he wheels out statistics of successes recorded by the nation's security agencies.
Suicide bombings struck in Borno on June 30 after almost 5 years of such terror attack. Despite these challenges, the security agencies have demonstrated unwavering dedication to maintaining and preserving Nigeria's territorial integrity and ensuring the safety of its citizens.
The recent interception of illegal arms and ammunition imported from Turkey is also a point of conversation as the National Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Customs Service speaks on measures to curb the menace.
Some 2 months or 3 months back, the Controller General of Customs was in China, and we signed an MOU with General Administration of China Customs. Most of the drugs we intercept comes from India. We are working towards also having what is called customs-to-customs cooperation. Those of us that are within the WCO, World Customs Organization, customs-to-customs cooperation is part of the strategy to, one, ensure trade facilitation, two, to cut illicit trade.
They also provide updates on the fight against insurgency and corruption in the country.
Take it from me that whenever there is a loss of life, be it military or civilian loss of life, it is indeed considered a tragedy. And with what has happened in Goza and what is also happening in other areas, we mourn with those that have lost their loved ones as a result of what has happened.
We know the enemy, we know ourselves, we know the terrain, and we are proactive in the nature of information we gather and disseminate.
Members of the committee are unanimous in the call for increased support from citizens for security agencies.
Staying in the Federal Capital Territory, the Minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, says the reason for abandoned projects in the country is largely due to the unavailability of funds from the federal government, which he says is a major challenge for driving infrastructural development. He was speaking during the flag-off of the reconstruction of the Quetta-Yebu Road in Kwali Area Council of the nation's capital. The Federal Ministry of Education has inaugurated the governing councils for federal tertiary institutions, namely federal universities, federal polytechnics, and colleges of education. At the ceremony in Abuja, the Minister of Education, Professor Maman Tahir, charged the newly inaugurated governing council members to use the experiences to restore the lost glory of tertiary education in the country. And in other news, Christ the Redeemer's Nursery and Primary School has held the 3rd edition of the Mommy Go public lecture in honor of Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye to mark her 76th birthday. The event, which holds every year at the Redemption City, brought together a long list of high-profile personalities, from the Redeemed Christian Church of God, as well as friends, family, and associates of Mrs. Adeboye, popularly known as Mother in Israel.
A guard of honor for a woman celebrated, honored, and admired by nations around the world. Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye. Done with the salutations, she makes her way to the province coordinating hall for the 3rd edition of the MGO Public Lecture in honor of her 76th birthday. The theme for this year is the Christian education and the making of a complete child. The event, which has been holding annually since 2022, brings together an array of top-ranking members of the RCCG, including the Governing Council, CRNPS Board of Governors, Vice-Chancellors, heads of schools, senior pastors, parents, pupils, and more. Chairman of CRNPS Board of Governors, Pastor Williams Akimbamijo, sets the tone for the day's event.
The effect of this public lecture has already taken root in CRNPS, and this is a challenge to all educators, administrators among us here, that we should not just come over and listen. Rather, we should take steps, particularly in implementing the recommendation.
You're welcome, Ma. This occasion is chaired by the Vice Chairman, Channels Media Group, Mrs. Olushola Momo, who eulogizes the impactful leadership of the celebrant in her opening remarks.
As we celebrate Mommy's 76th birthday today, let us reaffirm our commitment to this noble cause and work together to ensure that every child has the opportunity to receive a good, well-grounded Christian education. Happy 76th birthday, Mommy. May your life continue to be a source of inspiration, and may your legacy live on in the hearts and minds of all who have been touched by your work. And today, I publicly declare that you are my mentor.
Next, the guest speaker, Professor Emeritus Michael Omolewa, dissects the theme of the event, highlighting the essence of Christian education.
When Christianity came to Africa, it became different because at that time, Christian education was transformative. Anywhere there is Christian education, all things are gone, are past. Behold, all things are new. And one of such example, when Christianity was introduced to Africa, was the example of Samuel Ajayi Crowther.
It's a rich panel session, honestly.
And then comes a panel session which unpacks the challenges of parenting in the 21st century.
Parents need to be made to understand that they are the first teachers and they are the first pastors. The home is the first school and the home is the first church.
Parents are supposed to inculcate into the life of their children right from the beginning.
Yes.
What we call moral values. It should start from home.
With a grateful heart and dancing steps, the woman of the moment takes to the stage.
This is a lecture where we rebuild, we re-strategize, and we replan. I'm particular about education, like you have heard so many people talking about. And not only just education, total child is very important to me. Up to the university level, Christian education
must be a standard for our universities. We are going to overpower every form of worldliness in our schools.
And what's a birthday celebration without cake?
What is that name? Jesus. Hallelujah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, the soft-spoken wife to the General Overseer of the RCCG, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, is very passionate about moral and Christian upbringing for children. This event is testament to her legacy.
Indeed, happy 76th birthday to Mommy Gio. Well, Dominic Irewo is standing by now with business news as the federal government increases or reviews mining fees. Over now to you, Dominic.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Malkbe. On business news, the federal government has announced new rates and charges for mining companies operating in Nigeria. The Minister of Solid Minerals and Development, Mr. Adele Alake, announced the rates at a media briefing in Abuja. He explains that the rates are necessary to support the advancements in the sector, as he adds that the new rates will take immediate effect. Over 250 natural resources are affected by the new rate.
The rates are just too infinitesimal, too negligible, too inconsequential to sustain these investments, these technological advances, and we have more in the offing that we want to put into the system to enhance the ease of doing business and to open up further the sector for foreign and local investment. So we decided that we needed to do something about the old rates. Now, reconnaissance permits will now attract a fee of 300,000. Exploration license will now be 600,000. Small-scale mining license will be 300,000. Quarry lease will be 600,000. And water use permit 300,000.
Back home, the domestic stock market ended Thursday's trading session in the red as sell pressures on MTN Nigeria and 22 other equities take toll on the primary indicators of the NGX. Vladdy Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report, and it's a quick switch for the local boss today with the bears flooding the market, no pun intended. All-share index 0.24%, 100,063 points. Market cap 56 trillion. Let's look at the activity chart. We see it's a lot of trading activity today with volume there in the green, 863 million valued at 12.56 billion naira. Deals also in the green, 7,931. Let's look at the sectoral performance. We see gains in the banking counter. That wasn't enough to counter the loss with MTN Nigeria down about 6%. Oil and gas also a big move there, 1.43%. Consumer goods almost flat. Well, gains and losses were almost equal today, with 24 gainers against 25 losers. But that's the Stock Market Report. Final trading day of the week tomorrow. Fingers crossed.
Let's take a look at how other major global markets ended Thursday's trading session. And that's it on business news. Back to you, Anne, for the rest of the bulletin.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Dominic. We'll talk about exit polls now following today's election in the United Kingdom. It suggested a historic victory for the Labour Party. According to data, Labour is projected to win 410 seats, which will give them a substantial majority in Parliament. But that is, if it's accurate, then the result will end 14 years of Conservative rule and make Labour leader the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Hundreds of thousands of homes in Jamaica are without power after Hurricane Beryl thundered along the island's southern coast. The Category 4 storm, one of the most powerful to ever hit the country, has brought more than 12 hours of heavy rain, prompting concerns about flash flooding. Winds of up to 130 miles per hour smashed into Jamaica's southern coast, causing untold damage to buildings and infrastructure. An island-wide curfew was extended, and while the hurricane warning has been cancelled, it has been replaced with a flash flood warning. It has left a trail of devastation across the Caribbean and caused the deaths of at least 7 people. Beryl has now weakened to a Category 3 storm and is rolling towards the Cayman Islands and southern Mexico.
There were significant storm surges. There have been reports of damage to buildings. In fact, the major international airport here in Kingston, we just reported a section of the roof has been damaged. The transport minister indicating that a plan will need to be put in place to ensure that the airport can open for passengers seamlessly. Obviously, the system would have come at us from the southeast, and so those parishes took the brunt of the battering this morning.
US President Joe Biden has admitted he screwed up in last week's debate against Donald Trump, but has vowed to fight on in the election race and moved to reassure key allies. He told a Wisconsin radio station he made a mistake with his stumbling performance, but urged voters to instead judge him on his time in the White House. On Wednesday, reports suggested he was weighing his future. He worked to calm senior Democrats, including state governors and campaign staff. The preacher who led an overcrowded gathering in India where more than 120 people were crushed to death has denied blame and pledged to cooperate with the police investigation. A lawyer for the self-styled guru known as Bole Baba says the crush occurred due to some antisocial elements. Bole Baba, whose real name is Narayan Sakar Vishwa Hari, will fully cooperate with his investigation, his lawyer said. Nearly all those killed were women and children who were attending the Satsang, a Hindu religious festival in Hathras district. Millions of voters are casting their ballots in the UK's first July general election since 1945. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak cast his vote in North Yorkshire, while Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer voted in North London. The Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, visited a polling station in south-west London, and Green Party co-leader Carla Denyer voted in the west of England. Polling stations set up in buildings like local schools and community halls are open between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Around 46 million voters are eligible to vote, and the results will be declared through the night and into Friday morning. And you can catch myself and my colleague Juliana Olayinka tomorrow on Channel's Business Global for a special show where we'll be analysing the exit polls and providing insights and commentary about this much-hyped election. Senator Fatima Payman has resigned from Australia's ruling Labour Party days after voting against it to support a motion on Palestinian statehood. Labour has strict penalties for those who undermine its policy positions, and Ms Payman was already indefinitely suspended from the party's caucus after vowing to do it again. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said Ms Payman had thanked him for his leadership and denied allegations she had been intimidated into quitting.
The ongoing genocide in Gaza is a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Unlike my colleagues, I know how it feels to be on the receiving end of injustice. My family did not flee from a war-torn country to come here as refugees, for me to remain silent when I see atrocities inflicted on innocent people. Witnessing our government's indifference to the greatest injustice of our times makes me question the direction the party is taking.
And footage has emerged of Europe's tallest active volcano spewing lava from one of its largest craters. Drone footage shows ash shooting out into the night sky, lava fountains and flows here capturing the intensifying volcanic activity. Mount Etna is located in Sicily and is one of the world's most active volcanoes. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. 3-time African champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, will get another opportunity to avenge their 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying defeat to the Cheetahs of Benin Republic in Abidjan last month, with both teams again paired in the same Group D in the race for the 2025 African Cup of Nations. At the draw ceremony conducted inside the Super Sports Studio in Johannesburg, South Africa earlier today, the Super Eagles also drew the Amavubi of Rwanda, another team in their 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying group, as well as the Mediterranean Knight of Libya. The 6-match qualifying series have been spread over the FIFA windows in September, October, and November this year, with 2 matches in each 7-day window. Rivers United technical manager Finidi George has been presented to fans of the club at the official unveiling ceremony held at the Shark Stadium in Port Harcourt earlier today. The 53-year-old former Imba head coach, who led the Elephant to the 2022-23 season, signed a 2-year deal with the Pride of Rivers barely 3 weeks after resigning as the head coach of the Super Eagles, having managed only 2 games. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic came through a testing Wimbledon workout to stay on course for a record-equaling 8th men's title earlier today. 7-time champion Djokovic did not have it all his own way against the British wildcard Jacob Fenley, but came through a 6-3, 6-4, 5-7, 7-5 in a second-round match lasting 3 hours. Fenley, playing in his first Grand Slam, carved out 2 break points in the 6th game of the 4th set, but missed his chance, and Djokovic broke in the 11th game before serving out for the win.
Mighty test from the British wildcard. An outstanding display from Jake Fenley. But ultimately it's not enough. It's the Serbian superstar that moves in.
Meanwhile, Jessica Pegula became the highest-ranked player to be dumped out of Wimbledon so far earlier today, losing 6-4, 6-7, 6-1 to China's Wang Zhenyu in the second round. The American, ranked 5th in the world, battled back after losing the first set, saving a match point in the second set tie-break before leveling the match. That's it on sports. It's back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. The president today inaugurated...
Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Entertainment News on Channels Television. Your one